If you trust and you never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. Won't you leave them there? Come on, sing with me. Won't you leave them there? Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. If you trust and you never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there.
Professional wise, like playing, I really think I am professional because I've because you said you're semi-professional, you have to go to school and everything. And you don't.
Bobby Monk is the son of the late, great Mr. and Mrs. Raymond and Lucy Monk, fourth son, born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and raised in a very religious household to believe in God, and I also believe in my country. And I happen to be one of the main people in the family. Bobby Monk was chosen. I faced the fact to pass on this legacy in the family. And I've been trying to do that through my talent and also with the spirit and spirituality of my forefathers, of whom were many professionals, farmers, and a lot of preachers in the family. And I just happened to be into the music like my father. My father was a gospel pianist, and he also played ragtime a little bit during his day. But I'm also the cousin of the late, great Thelonious Sphere Monk, one of the fathers of jazz, and I'm very proud and happy to say that I have the blood of a musical genius flowing through my veins, and I'm very proud and very excited and happy that I was born in this family, and I was chosen by his spirit and some of the other talented people in my family to be the one to pass on this beautiful legacy. I had graduated in the class of '68 from Dillard High School in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and I was working at part-time on weekends at the United States Air Force, which is Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, after school. And I was working with the civil engineers, hoping to get a job whenever I graduated. So I followed my father's advice, came to D.C., and got different jobs and ended up working for the department, highway department here in Washington, D.C., helping to build the Metro rail system. And it was a very interesting job, digging the tunnels and everything. One day I came home from work, opened the mailbox, and there was a brown envelope in the mailbox. I opened it up. It says, "Greetings from Uncle Sam. Report to Fort Bragg, North Carolina." No, in other words, come back to North Carolina, and you're going to be inducted into the United States Army as a soldier. And my mother said one beautiful prayer. She said, "I'm turning loose a man, and he's going to come back a man." And I was only an 18-year-old kid, and I was scared to death because I knew, I didn't know anything about the war, but I knew that if I go to jail, it's a possibility I might not make it, but I might make it in the war. They sent me into the deep part. There was no front lines. So I ended up in the war with a machine gun. I basically can hear, there's a bright side somewhere. Take your burdens to the Lord and leave it there, And my father used to play that all the time on the piano. At times when it got so hard, I would sing, "Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. Won't you leave them there? Won't you leave them there? Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. If you trust and never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. And the smoke would clear sometime after we come out of a firefight. I thought I was going home, but they sent me to Okinawa, Japan. And I spent the rest of my time there, approximately maybe 2 or 3 months or something like that. But while I was there, the only job they gave me was in the mess hall cooking, because I was coming out of combat. And while I was in the mess hall cooking, I would sing, because there's an echo in the mess hall, off the tiles in the mess hall, and I would sing, "Love on a two-way street, and lost it on a long." But at the time, my voice was nice and high, just like the Ray Goodman and Brown guy. And all of a sudden, the guy leaned in and he says, "What's that you singing?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Hit that note again." And I said, "Lonely highway." He said, "Here's my card. Come and see me this evening." I went to his house that evening and found out that he was a captain in the Air Force, and he had the only all-black soul band on the island. It was a famous band. And he told me, "Bobby, sing some of that song. Let the guys hear you sing." So I started singing some of the song. Before I could get halfway through the song, the guys dropped the instruments and ran to me and said, "I've been waiting for a singer, lead singer. My God, we got one." Somehow, he got with my superiors, got me out of the mess hall. All I had to do was travel and do 3 shows per day. I was the lead singer of the band, and my nickname, stage name on Okinawa, Japan, we call it The Rock. They called me Monk on the Rock. And of course, my idol was James Brown, all right? And I would come out on stage, and they would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Monk on the Rock." And I would come out on one leg, sliding like James Brown on a sex machine. And I would turn the joint out. And all the ladies dying and falling out, and then I would break it down and sing "Love on a Two-Way Street." But we would do 3 shows a day, and that's where I really connected with the big music world, with the professionals. We opened up for James Brown, O.C. Smith, Freddie Cole, all those different people that came on the USO shows. Oh, when I got back home, oh my God. My mom, first, they took turns, my mom and my dad, they took turns holding me. My mom held me in her arms for a solid hour. And it was tears, and she would lean back and she would look at me and she would hold my face like this and say, "He's here. Thank you, Lord. One piece." After I got back and got to my childhood sweetheart that presented me with 4 sons. I already had 1 son by my first wife. And my 4 sons were very talented, and they came to me as, being able to carry on that talent in the family. Each one of them. I would get instruments from the pawn shops and yard sales, and I would put them in the basement, and the kids would knock them around and bang them until finally somebody got a note, and that was Edward. Edward was the oldest, and we put him in the DC Youth Orchestra, and he started playing violin. From there, the other fellas went to the DC Youth Orchestra program. Wanted to go and find the family and meet my cousin, late great Thelonious Sphere Monk, up in New York. And I set out to meet him, and I did go meet the family and everybody, but I really didn't get a chance to actually meet him because he was living with the Baroness at the time. But my cousin, Aunt Nellie, I call her Aunt Nellie, who was his wife, living with T.S. and Barbara, the late Barbara, who was his sister. She passed away. But I got with them, and I explained to her about my desire and my dream that I had as a child, a young child, in building a culture center in his honor, okay? She gave me her blessings. I got a chance to talk with the great Thelonious on the phone, but I never did get a chance to meet him before he passed away. But my sons, when I came back, I told Cousin Nellie, "I don't know how I'm going to do this thing. I've never done this before," but she said, "Bobby, that idea of what you want to do, what you want to build in his honor. She said, go for it. We can't let him die. And she embraced me. And I came back home to step out to try to do this thing. And my son, Edward, heard me talking to my wife about it. And they had already been doing little things around different churches and, community things that they had been doing. So we said, well, let's take it to the stage. And that's where this music thing began with my sons. They learned how to read and write music through the DC Youth Orchestra program, where they have made some tremendous strides in the music world. Youngest jazz performing family in the history of jazz ever.
Music means everything to me. It's my life. I want people to know how my brothers and stuff and how we had to struggle and come up and learn jazz. And it's not that easy to learn jazz.
They're billed as the fabulous Monk family, 4 brothers who played their first notes together 15 years ago. Their love of jazz comes from a home filled with music and a father proud of his roots. 4 young DC musicians, ages 15 to 21, play many of their own compositions, specializing in a concept they call teen jazz. It's their way of trying to get their peers into the progressive rhythms created by African Americans.
Lord, I'm so proud. People get tired of me talking about my sons. I know they used to say, well, man, every time we see that man, he got them little boys with him. And now those little boys are grown. Those boys have presented me with me and my wife, a beautiful wife, Gloria, who is a retired elementary school teacher in November of 2015 after 44 years of service in the PG County Board of Education system. They have presented us with 14 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. And we have 2 very talented young men in that particular family, grandsons. One grandson is in Zay. I'm going to start with Zay being the youngest, which is Marcus's son. Zay is in the DC Youth Orchestra program, and he started at the age of 4 and a half years old studying violin. He's in his 2nd semester, and he has a recital this coming Saturday, where his 2nd concert. And of course, Mike, who happens to be my fantastic young man that has stepped out with a tutor who is the retired music director for Dunbar High School, Mr. Edward Anderson, who has taken him under his wing for the last year. He's got him on stage now performing with his playing drums, and he is so excited. I'm so excited about what he's doing. He understands and he realizes that he has to carry on this legacy. And I told him, I said, Mike, this is a pretty rough business. You think you're ready for it? Oh, Grandpa, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing right now. He tells me that on stage, and he definitely knows what he's doing. He understands what he's doing because he wants to help raise funds for this cause to carry on this legacy in the family. And of course, yeah, I love it. I'm very excited, and we, got this thing going on to where we're building this first bronze statue of Thelonious that we designed. When I say we, myself and my other son Gregory, and a very famous sculptor by the name of Edward Dwight, who is going to be building the sculpture in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And we're going to be doing the Culture Center after that, a multi-million-dollar building, which is going to be built in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, where he was born. To know about the legacy of not just the Monk family, but the Bobby Earl Monk family from Northeast Washington, D.C., by way of North Carolina, Goldsboro, North Carolina. I'm very proud of my hometown. A lot of people don't like to call it and say where they're from, but if you don't know where you're from and you don't talk about where you're from, a lot of times they say you don't know where you're going.
cut